Hi and welcome. This is Patty Writings and you are watching Southland TV. This month is the National Bullying Prevention Month here in the state of Illinois. We're excited to provide you with information on this specific topic. You know that people need to be aware on how we can help and how we can prevent it. You know, a lot of times we have situations that we come across and we don't know what to do. To help us understand a little more about this subject, I have a very special guest today. Her name is Whitney McDaniels, and she is an LCPC, a certified mediator and a parenting coordinator for associate and professional counseling. Welcome, Whitney.
Thank you.
We are very excited to have you here because I know that this subject is very dear to your heart. You've been working with a lot of issues regarding this specific subject. And tell me a little bit about what is bullying?
Bullying is something that we're seeing more and more of. It is somebody that uses their strength or intimidation to intimidate someone, to force them to do something that they don't want to do.
Wow. Very simple, and a lot of times we see ourselves in situations like that. But what the stereotype or maybe misunderstanding out there is that bullying is just social media. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. You know, we're seeing more and more in social media, but bullying can happen anywhere, right? It can happen on the playground, it can happen in your own house, it can happen verbally. So it's just not social media, but we are seeing an increase happening on social media just due to people using more and more of social media.
Right. Now, do you think though that most kids say, well, or parents or adults say, oh, they're just kids being mean? But what really that means? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. I think that's an important point, right? I think the word bullying is being used far too often, right? If it's just one time a kid or even adults bully one another, right? And it just happens one time, people are using the word bullying, right? That's not the case, right?
Okay.
Bullying has to happen a number of different times, right? It has to cause harm, right? It has to have intent, and it has to be willful, right? So there has to be some sort of purpose behind that, and it has to be repetitive in nature. So it's just not going to happen one time, it's going to happen multiple times for it to be somebody bullying.
Now, there is a lot of effects in children through bullying. Can you give me some examples of really the psychological effects of bullying?
Sure. So if you are noticing maybe your child or someone close to you that's being bullied, you're possibly going to see that child all of a sudden not wanting to go to a certain place, right? So they're going to avoid a situation. That main situation might be school, right? You're going to see a change in behavior. So you might see some isolation, right? You might see some sadness. You might see all of a sudden some friend changes, right? All of a sudden a friend that they were hanging out with, they're no longer hanging out with so much. Also, if they're looking at social media a lot, right? They've all of a sudden become obsessed with because they're checking to see, right? What are these people saying about them? Or they're avoiding social media. So those are, just some signs. There's a lot more, but those are a few to watch out for.
The other thing is, when do you think that the behavior have crossed the line?
I would say when you're starting to see those mood changes, right? When all of a sudden, the kids or child is starting to wanting to avoid situations, right? Like all of a sudden that every Monday, right, that I don't want to go to school turns into like weeks of not wanting to go to school, right? All of a sudden that behavior change turns into, you know, I'm sad most days, right? You know, all of a sudden I'm crying more, right? Now I don't want to hang out with any friends, right? Sometimes we notice kids, they want to start hurting themselves, you know, so I think, you know,
those are definitely warning signs.
Definitely huge warning signs.
So what would be your advice to a parent out there who, as he listening or she's listening to the comments you just made, and they say, well, what can I do? What would be one thing you suggest them for them to do?
I think, you know, the main thing that, you know, we can do as adults and as parents, right, is to listen. Right? Is, you know, talk with your kids, right? Know who their friends are. If they're old enough to be on social media, see what sites they're on, right? You should be friends with them on social media. See what's being posted. You know, research shows, right, the faster that adults act on bullying, right, the better the outcome. Right? Get the school involved. Even though kids, right, don't usually want, right, school or parents to be involved because they're afraid of like the backlash of the bully, right? I think, you know, we can do a better job as parents and as school providers to hopefully lessen that backlash. But, you know, we have to talk to our kids, find out what's going on to help support them.
Yes, and basically what you're saying is reach out to your child. Reaffirm them that you're there to help them, to support them, especially if you already have seen these signs. Take them seriously because the effects can be very dramatic for the child. Am I correct?
Oh, absolutely. It can be a lifelong kind of harming psychological effect.
Now, you know, I wanted to also let the audience know a little bit of your background because you've been working with this specifically area for a very long time. Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So I have been working as a therapist for about 12 years. So my background is I worked in a psychiatric hospital for about 6 years in the western suburbs and have been working in private practice for the past 8 years, seeing children 3 years and up. And I personally have seen an increase, right, in seeing kids dealing with bullying, especially as, you know, the social media has increased, right? The smartphone and stuff like that.
And a lot of these kids have already at 8 years old with a phone. I mean, that was not available years ago. So I think that culture has changed and allowed them to be more vulnerable in those situations. But I really want the audience to know, to reach out to you. How can someone right now can say, hey, I need help, or I know someone who needs help? How can they get a hold of you?
Sure. So I can be reached at Associates of Professional Counseling, and you can reach me at 708-448-0884, extension 25, and that goes directly to my voicemail. Or you can get a hold of any of our therapists. We have, you know, many qualified therapists, and any of us can help you or educate you on any of these aspects related to children and adults and bullying.
Yes, well, great. Thank you so much for being with us and really give us information that is so much needed in this time and age. And again, supporting the National Bullying Prevention Month. We are so also pleased to know that we're going to be doing a 5 series on this topic and continue providing you with value information in our community. Thank you so much for tuning with us, and thank you again, Whitney, for being with me.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.